Hello everyone, Dark Shadow Films 101 here, bringing you yet another glorious fanfiction reading. The story I have for you today is called A God Over Man and Beast by PainbowSlash. Here we go. Chapter 1. Twilight Sparkle yawned and slowly opened her eyes. What time is it? I must have stayed up all night reading that Marvel vs. Capcom strategy guide. She raised a hoof to her eye to wipe away the drowsiness, or she would have, if there wasn't a rope tied around it. What the? She shook her other forehoof and found it was similarly bound. She kicked with her back hooves and once again felt the rope digging into her. Hey, what's going on? Someone, help! Her mind was foggy after having just woken up, but she was smart enough to know that a unicorn, especially one as powerful as her, shouldn't have any trouble cutting through some ropes. She cast a spell to slice the rope, but nothing happened. Her horn did not give off the familiar glow she had grown so accustomed to, and the ropes did not let go. She glanced around at her surroundings in a panic. She didn't recognize the stony interior or the strangely shaped pieces of metal lying on the floor. Hello? Is anyone there? Where am I? She could hear a voice from behind her. In 7 minutes, I will become an alicorn, and now no one can stop me, not even you, Twilight Sparkle. Who are you? I am Albert Wesker. Chapter 2. Albert who? Twilight struggled to move her head around to see who or what was standing behind her, but it was no use. You see, Twilight Sparkle, I have decided that you equestrians would make for excellent test subjects. I have already completed several experiments, but I believe you to be an exceptional case. Why me? What do you mean you've completed several experiments? Where am I? Where are my friends? Your questions will be answered soon. But first let me tell you that I truly do find you to be extraordinary. Twilight Sparkle heard heavy footsteps moving closer to her, and her eyes opened wide when her captor stood before her. He was a human, something she had only ever heard of in myths and fairy tales. You're a human? No, you insolent cretin. I am a god. Twilight winced as the man's boots slammed into her side, and she cried out in pain. I'm sorry! I'm sorry! The man did not respond, and instead he lowered himself and stared into her face from behind his sunglasses. Yes, a perfect specimen indeed. He reached out and started to slowly rub her horn with his gloved hand. Normally this would have been a very sensitive spot for Twilight, but she felt nothing, as if her horn had been completely paralyzed. Why can't I use my magic? Oh, well, that's all part of the experimentation process. I can't have you trying to escape, so I had to have your magical abilities removed. Permanently. Chapter 3. Permanently? Twilight stared at him in wide-eyed horror. You're joking! This is all just a mean trick. You can't take away my magic! She closed her eyes and desperately tried to cast a spell. Any spell. But it was to no avail. There's no use in that. I make sure I do a thorough job of declawing my lapdogs. You are no exception. Even while focusing her mind entirely on her magic, Twilight could sense the human walking in circles around her. You have such a strange form. So small, round, colorful. Something that looks like it would appeal to mortals. But those mortals are nothing to me. She felt him place his boot firmly onto her flank, as if she was a barrel and he was Captain Morgan. You took away my magic, she sobbed and started to cry as the realization started to finally sink in. So what about my friends? Well, there are still a few of them out there. I had one of them disposed of. Her speed proved to be unstable, unreliable. She brought it upon herself. Rainbow Dash? What did you do to Rainbow Dash? All will make itself clear in time. Now, There's something I must do. Twilight felt the boot move off of her, but then she felt the soft leather of his glove start to slide across her rear. She remained silent, her crushed spirit stopping her mind from thinking of what could happen next. So, what are you going to do to me? Well, I read a few things about you on the internet. I need to see if my research is correct for myself. Chapter 4. Twilight felt the leather slowly move lower, to her marehood. Hey, what are you doing? She did not get a response. Instead, the leather running over her entrance gave her the answer she wanted to avoid. Hey! Hey! Are you serious? Is that what you want with me? Silence, worm! Twilight cried out in pain as she felt his other hand jab sharply into her side. Do not interfere with my research, or you will live to regret it, if you continue to live. He continued to rub his fingers on the entrance, stimulating her weakly, but enough that she could just ignore it. Her slit started to dampen, as she felt him remove his hand from her. Wesker sniffed the moisture on his glove, then tasted it. Plum. He reached into his long coat and dialed a number on his cell phone. Maria, find the stranger I met on the Omegle, and have him added to the list of the potential Nemesis Mark IV candidates. He shut the phone off without waiting for a response, and turned back to Twilight. Now then, if you'll excuse me, I have more important matters to attend to. Do not despair, though I will return shortly. She heard him walk out of the room. Then she heard a door slide shut. She tried weakly to struggle free from the ropes again, but it was useless. She looked around the room again, her eyes accustomed to the darkness of the room. The metallic objects lying on the floor were syringes. Some were empty, some were not. They were labeled, though. She could only make out the names on a few of them. T01, 0001, Microscythia fraud. She couldn't imagine what was in them, or what they were meant for. Her mind started to wander, as she thought about the fates of her friends, and what had actually happened to Rainbow Dash. Chapter 5. What the heck did that person, do to Rainbow Dash? Twilight ran through various scenarios through her head. He had beaten her to death, broke her wings, and tossed her into a dumpster? He said cryptic things about her speed. Was it possible that she was nothing more than a pastel paste on a wall? Damn it, Twilight! Pull yourself together. You need to be strong. As long as the elements of harmony are intact, you can solve anything. Then she started to weep, realizing that there was at least one element missing from the group. She didn't even notice the sliding door open and close behind her. Greetings again, equestrian. What do you want this time? She said in between sobs, trying to sound calm and unaffected, and failing miserably. Well, I've come to the conclusion that you are no longer useful to me, so I plan to have you... I suppose there's no kind way for me to say it. I'm here to have you executed. Twilight remained silent. She couldn't comprehend what was even happening anymore. Instead, preferring to think she was just in some crazy dream. Now don't be so glum. I figured since you were so special, you'd get a little bit of usage before I throw you away. She stayed silent, staring at the syringes in front of her, ignoring his words and trying to read more of the labels, trying so hard that she was straining her eyes more than she had ever done before. However, she couldn't ignore the ominous sound of a zipper opening. Chapter 6. Do you have any idea what's about to happen to you, Twilight Sparkle? You're going to... She knew exactly what he was planning, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. The fact that she was to be executed seemed almost unworthy of note compared to what was going to happen right now. She felt his glove on her rear, not in a sexual way, but a commanding way. Then he felt a pinprick into her side. "What are you doing? Stop! Stop!" she shouted at him, and tried to shake herself free. But she soon felt a sharp pain as something was injected into her. Her body grew hot, and her thoughts started to become incomprehensible to her, like she was reading the fine print on a roller coaster. What are you going to do to me?" She slurred her words, as her thoughts all mixed together. Her panic confusion slowly started to give way to a strange dull bliss as the gravity of her situation started to leave her mind. She didn't get an answer, but instead she felt something soft wrap around her horn. Unlike before, she could feel all the sensations she would normally have been able to feel and more. She winced as it slid down her horn and neatly settled at the base. "You know, I've always wondered if a unicorn's horn was as erogenous zone. Judging from your reactions, I'll say it is." She felt the softness start to move up and down in rhythmic strokes, squeezing and softening its grip at the same time. "That feels good. I mean, what did you do to me?" she yelled, as if she had just been woken up from a dream. "It's all just a little experiment. Please bear with me for just a minute." Chapter 7. She felt the object continue to rub her now sensitive horn. "Wait, if I can feel my horn, then doesn't that mean I can cast magic?" she thought. The thought came to her in a brief moment of clarity, and she sat there with a dumb smile on her face, and her mind once again blurred beyond recognition. Knowing that she could cast magic again put her in a good mood, but she was unable to realize that she should be using that and try to escape. Instead, she just allowed herself to bask in the pleasure that the horn massage was bringing her. "So, Twilight Sparkle, does this feel good?" "It feels so good." "Of course it does. I've done a lot of research on your kind, you know. Enough to make even the most studious of unicorns look like slackers by comparison." He gripped her horn tightly and rubbed it roughly. "Ah! That's too much! Too much!" She tried to shake her head to free herself, but she was caught in his vice-like grip. "I'm sorry if you thought I was here to provide you with some last-minute pleasure. I'm only here to take your horn so I can perform some examinations on it. Taking it after you've already been disposed of would really lower the quality of the material." She cried out as she felt his grip start to pull and bend her horn, as if he were trying to tear it out. "Stop it! Stop it! That hurts! It hurts! It hurts!" Suddenly, another voice was heard as the sound of the door sliding open filled the room. "Hey, the little mare said to stop, so you better cut it out before things get real nasty." Chapter 8. "Out of my way!" There was the sound of a gunshot, and then all fell silent for far too long. "Hello? Applejack? Call out to me if you're still there. Applejack!" "I told you, I was the only worthy one." Wesker holstered his samurai eagle and went back to check on the corpse that now lay in front of him. He examined it for a pulse, and, satisfied with what he found, removed his cell phone from his coat pocket. "Maria." "Yes, I understand that now. Send the cleanup crew immediately." He snapped his phone shut and returned to Twilight, who was now weeping in the middle of the room. "I'm afraid that you killed her. You killed Applejack. You monster!" "If she hadn't come in here, then there wouldn't have been a problem. Some people need to learn when and when not to intrude. The same goes for ponies." Twilight wanted to respond, to yell at him and spit venom into his eyes, but she couldn't speak over her sobs and cries. With the drugs that had been administered, she wasn't even aware of why she was crying most of the time, and had to constantly remind herself of what had happened. "Now even I can be compassionate. I think you've been through enough for one day." Wesker unholstered his samurai eagle again and held it to Twilight's head. Now you've seen my power firsthand. I will take this world, and I will make sure nothing here can oppose me ever again. The tenacity of you equestrians is quite irritating, and I refuse to allow even one of you the chance to enact your revenge. Before you leave this plane, is there anything you'd like to say? Chapter 9. Yeah, I have something to say. Fuck you, Wesker. Wesker scowled and squeezed the trigger, but was blown back by a burst of energy. Damn it! He smacked against the wall and looked at the pony that was now standing before him. You can't take a unicorn's power, Wesker. You're not an alicorn or a god or anything. You're a joke, and soon you're going to be a corpse. Twilight had regained her senses and concentrated until a magical spear was summoned and pointed at Wesker. He rose to his feet, hands still clutching the samurai edge. It's over, Wesker. You're going to pay for everything you did. Do you fucking understand me? She rammed into his shin horn first, causing him to stumble back to the ground. She levitated his gun into the air and tossed it to the other side of the room. You cannot suffer enough after what you've done to my friends, but I'm going to make sure that you suffer as much as possible. She shot the spear at his side, cutting him deeply and causing him to reach under his coat to stop the bleeding. You know what? I don't even care anymore. Just die like the maggot you are. She retracted her spear and pointed it at him again, this time so that it wouldn't be a glancing blow. Now, do you have any last words before you see why you don't mess with Equestria? Yes. Yes, I do. Wesker grinned and removed his hands from the coat, coated in blood and holding a revolver. He pulled the trigger, and Twilight fell to the ground, her left forehoof bleeding profusely. You just don't understand, do you? You slacked off in a fight you were winning, and I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. Twilight heard the sound of another gunshot, and then everything went black. Chapter 10. Ah! Twilight awoke with a jolt. She was in her bed at home, and everything was fine. She checked her body for anything unusual, but she was perfectly fine. She looked over the side of her bed and saw an open page from a book she had been reading the night before. It was just a dream? It was just a dream! She galloped out of the library and into the streets. She could see her friends chatting off to the side. Applejack! Rainbow Dash! I'm so glad to see you! Well, howdy, Twi. Oh, hey, Twi. You guys, I just had the worst nightmare ever. Well, don't you worry about that no more. It was just a dream. Come on, let's go have some fun. You got it, but where's every pony else? The two other ponies looked at Twilight, then exchanged glances with each other. They'll be here shortly. Don't you worry about it. Come on, let's just go have fun somewhere. And thus, the trio ran off into the sunset to play. The end. Well, I can honestly say that I enjoyed that story a lot. Not a lot of people did, according to the comments and the massive amounts of thumbs down, but I, for one, enjoyed it. This coming from someone who's a big Resident Evil fan, as well as a My Little Pony Friendship is Magic fan. But anywho, I hope you guys enjoyed this reading as much as I did, and I hope to be doing more soon. So, until next time, Dark Shadow Films here, signing off.